tiers are in fact planetary, at least in attack potency. But the fact of the matter is, even Naruto himself can destroy the Earth if he really wanted to. One reason people believe such is the fact that, according to them, there are no such feats. Then they'll go and say, oh, but Namek Saga Goku, he can bust the planet. Look at that time he didn't do it. I couldn't tell you why they say that, but I can at least attempt to prove that Naruto himself is in fact a planet buster. I will be using as much evidence as possible for my point. At least, for the most part, it'll pertain exclusively to Naruto. First, I'll go over attack potency very briefly, because this is a big portion of Naruto's ninjutsu attacks. So, Massive Rasengan is a technique that, created by Jiraiya while in Sage Mode, is exactly what it sounds like, a Massive Rasengan. Even in its smallest size, it has been shown to easily overshadow a grown adult male, and then some, because it's a sphere, so it's omnidirectional, all directions is the same. You get it. It is also stated by the databooks to be able to carve away at a mountain. Now, some may say this is a hyperbole, but this is actually accurate, as when Sage Naruto, who is far stronger than Sage Jiraiya even in the Pain arc, as it improved since then, because this is the, Turtle Island arc, I guess you could call it, used the technique on a much larger scale, and was roughly even with Kurama's tail, which has also been stated to be a mountain buster itself, just through swiping the tail at a mountain. So when two stated mountain level powers collide and roughly break even, Kurama's tail being slightly stronger, that should be a clear case that it is indeed not a hyperbole and it's actually fact. Some may say that the Massive Rasengan can only be mountain level no matter how much bigger it gets, but I'll come back to that later. Next, we'll go over some scaling and statements from the series that support planetary level characters. I will try to use direct statements and whatnot because only implied ones could lead confusion, and people in the comments will probably flame me, which is fine, but this is supposed to be educational, so I don't want any of that. Also, I will not be bringing up the moon cannon from the last because that can get controversial, and I don't need that right now, and neither do you. So right off the bat, we have the Jubi itself. In its first form, before the concept of ninjutsu or shinobi was even set in stone, it lived its daily life annihilating the surface of the planet, as well as other crazy stuff like, lifting mountains and drinking oceans, things like that. Keep in mind that the Jubi was not agitated in any way, that's just kind of how it existed. After achieving its second form, the sensing sphere goes haywire, and the Jubi's energy is comparable to that of a small planet itself. People can call this hyperbole too, but the whole point of the sensing sphere, it's like a world map. So they can use the soldier's chakra to calibrate it, so to speak. And that's why it's a sphere, it's been calibrated. And the fact that the Jubi's mere presence made it change shape entirely to make a small planet off the side of an actual planet, in terms of the sphere. And when you think about it, the other Bijus didn't make impact very little, if at all, to the sphere. And since Kurama even lowballed is island level, and the Jubi's first form has multi-island to country level feats in its second form anyway, so even if you lowball, you can't do that way. And then it transforms 2 more times and Obito absorbs it, becoming the Jinchuriki himself. After gaining control of the Jubi and whatnot, he pulls out a technique called the Nunoboko no Ken, or the Sword of Nunoboko. This is a double helix, massive sword that is made up of Gudodamas, or Truth Seeker orbs, and has been stated to be planetary, and via scaling it is very plausible. You can call it a hyperbole if you want, but I disagree simply because the Jinchuriki of the Jubi was always supposed to be stronger than the Jubi itself, and since it's comprised of Gudodama and they ignore conventional durability anyway, that it's very plausible and pretty much fact at this point. But since it has no feats and wasn't even used properly when it was introduced, I'll leave it at that, but I'm just letting you know it's worth mentioning. And now that's all of the way, let's get into some feats, as I myself have even advocated for feats being the #1 source of evidence for power scaling in debates. So I'm going to be a hypocrite? No, of course not. I'm gonna bring feats myself. So let's look at the last Naruto the movie for a moment. Being the first canon theatrical release for the Naruto franchise, it was a great opportunity for fans to see how Naruto had grown in the aftermath of the Fourth Great Shinobi War. Despite it being focused on the romance between Naruto and Hinata, there was still enough action between Naruto and Toneri for us to find out how strong Naruto has become. Without further ado, let's talk about the Naruto vs. Toneri fight and some feats, or a feat. Firstly, Naruto used an odd combination, KCM mode mixed with Sage mode. Some say it's actually Biju Sage mode, but the design looks too different, and he had already separated with half of Kurama, so KCM, it feels like it's KCM to me. If it is Biju mode, it's not that big of a deal in this context of the argument, so if you want, say it's Biju mode, it doesn't really matter here. Regardless of the form used, he still showed a feat that is impressive, but not that impressive if you think about a potency, but we won't use that argument in this context again. So, as we are all likely aware, Toneri's biggest feat was slicing the moon in half. Regardless of how hollow you think the moon was, it is still a massively impressive feat, and was probably the intention to be a moon-level feat by Kishimoto anyway. However, there is a calc on T5 forums that has accepted the feat. As stated on the forum, Toneri's attack is placed at multi-continent plus, which is still very impressive. But how does it compare to Planetary? That doesn't sound like it does. Hold on a minute. Well, that was a Naruto after roughly 2 years of training with an unknown amount of intensity in the training. Now, some may say Uchiha Stone Tablet Hokage Naruto, current Naruto is Hokage Naruto, is actually weaker than he was before because he stopped training. Technically, you're right, but you're mostly wrong, and I'll explain why. Naruto has not trained much, if at all, since he became the Hokage, and is rusty in combat. However, this does not put him below the last Naruto, or even teen Naruto for that matter. Reason being, here in the Shikamaru novel arc, which is canon, because it is based off the canon novels, Shikamaru met up with Naruto and had a conversation with him before leaving for his mission. So Shikamaru tells Naruto do some missions, and Naruto says he's booked, and he won't have a break for 6 months. So 6 months straight of missions. Shikamaru responds with, and I quote, "This is the most crucial time in your life. Take on as many missions as possible, make it so everyone says, it has to be Naruto, no one else will do. If you think they acknowledge you because you're the hero of the Great War, you're wrong." And Naruto naturally agrees, and because this is his nindo to never give up and never, break a promise or whatever, we know he'll stick to it. Hell, in the after credits scene for the last Naruto the movie, we see him shadowboxing in the snow. He doesn't have a coat or anything, so that's at least mild intensive training. Not a lot of people do all that. And this is still a few years before he becomes Hokage. And from that point, it's at least 13 years before he becomes Hokage, probably a year or two longer, depending on how old Boruto is as a toddler, and whenever Hinata got pregnant. After they got married, I don't really know. If we remember how much stronger 2 years of training got Naruto, imagine 13 to 15 years, where he hardly took breaks. So basically, Hokage Naruto may be a bit rusty with his combat and instincts, but is still far stronger than he was in the past, just not quite at his peak. So now we know that Hokage Naruto is far above all the previous incarnations of Naruto by a large margin. Large. We can now scale others off of him, and use feats as well. So let's look at Boruto, the Boruto portion of the series. We have Momoshiki and Kinshiki, who are at the very least comparable to Kaguya, with Kinshiki having planetary statements himself. But again, I won't use it because people get pissy when there aren't feats, unless it's DBZ for some reason. Since we know that they are a threat to Kaguya, Naruto and Sasuke, who can fight them rather well in weakened states, should be equal threats to her too, roughly. Anyway, when Momoshiki and Kinshiki kidnapped Naruto, they drained him for a few hours straight, weakening him to the point where he couldn't even open his eyes from the sheer pain of being drained for so long. Sasuke was also weakened because warping through dimensions weakens his eye power for a few hours to a few days, as shown in Naruto Gaiden. And he brought people with him. So weakened Naruto and Sasuke fight a Momoshiki who absorbed Kinshiki which at the very least, if he absorbed him, should be like an addition to their power, which would undoubtedly put them above Kaguya. Like, there's no debate there. Wow. Excuse me. So when the fight commences, Naruto and Sasuke use powerful physical strikes that launch him around the battlefield, which is the base of the Shinju. One thing that the manga retconned was the size of the Shinju, as in the movie it was noticeably smaller than the one on Earth, but in the manga it is roughly the same size as the original Shinju, if not a little shriveled up, but that's not really important. Keep that in mind, because it will be important later. So, Momoshiki's taking punches from Naruto and Sasuke, and keep in mind that a far weaker Naruto is able to, with one hand, block and overpower a multi-continent plus level attack, and then switch hands and then punch Toneri out of commission with KCM Chakra. This Naruto is using 6 Paths Chakra while in Biju mode, so it's still not quite his full potential, but he is stronger than he was before, and he's using a stronger form than he was before. I myself, if you've seen some of my other videos, put Biju mode at a little above 5 times KCM Naruto, so his punches would be using around 3,000 petatons or 3 exatons of force, which is ignoring the 6 Paths Chakra he's using. However, the transition from Biju Sage mode to Rikudo mode, which is, using all 9-tailed beast chakra and 6 Path Sage mode together, is at least 20 times minimum. So that would put his punches at 60 exatons, which according to the Versus Battle Wiki, which I only use for things like this, is moon level. So Momoshiki was taking little damage from large multi-continent plus level punches, just so we're clear. However, do we remember what defeated Momoshiki? It was a Rasengan, albeit a massive Rasengan, from Boruto at that. Let's look at what happened, though. Naruto, after running out of Kuruma's power, at least that's what it seems like, was impaled by 3 black receivers. For those who are unaware, black receivers are those rod things that Rinnegan users like Pain and Madara used. Just making contact with one, holding one, if you're not a Rinnegan user, can put your whole chakra flow under the control of the Rinnegan user responsible. Using them, you can stop it completely or control them. This is how Nagato could control the 6 Paths of Pain, Obito did the same with the Jinchuriki, Madara had the first and second Hokages unable to fight just by having them impaled with some, etc. So Naruto is impaled with 3 of them, and Momoshiki makes it clear that Naruto must survive so he can seal the fox. Later, Boruto prepares a Rasengan that Naruto lends some chakra to so he can finish off Momoshiki. Before we continue, let me remind you that Momoshiki is at his strongest, having just eaten more pills, and he is stronger than he was when he was, taking hits from Naruto and Sasuke. Keep that in mind. And I'm going to do some, weird, it's not pixel scaling, but it's something. So here's time for the quote-unquote calc. Let's look at Kid Naruto's Rasengan from the hospital rooftop all the way in part 1. Here is the damage from the Rasengan on the front of the water tower. The red line runs from his middle finger down to the base of his hand, which is roughly how big the Rasengan would be. It'd actually be a little smaller, but we'll lowball. I'm lowballing for you guys. Here we see that the length of his hand, and by that I mean from the middle finger to the base, goes up to the concussive damage ring, I'll call it, around the impact spot around 5.5 times. The 5th line is the one that ends with some space left, so it could be 6, but I'll lowball to 5.5 because it gets cut off. So Kid Naruto's early Rasengans do concussive force of around 5.5 times the size of the Rasengan around him. Now let's look at the back, because it clearly does way more, we know this. As you can see right here, the Rasengan also has enough concussive force to blow the back out of the water tower. Now I'm going to heavily lowball this and say this is around 10 times the diameter of the second picture's concussive damage, which is 5.5 times the original Rasengan's size. As we know, Boruto's Rasengan rips through the Shinju itself, which is around the same size as the one on Earth. The Shinju's base has a diameter of at least 100 kilometers. You can see it from countries away. It's massive. You can stand on the front of it and not see the Shinobi Alliance, or they'd look like ants, if that. Which is a low ball. Since the Rasengan was roughly the same size, we can say that it has a diameter of roughly 100 kilometers itself. Maybe a little less, but I'm rounding for simplicity's sake, because we could be here all day pixel scaling, and I don't do that shit. Except for, I don't. So the Rasengan will have at least a 5.5 times concussive multiplier around the side, so that would make it roughly 550 kilometers diameter of damage around the Rasengan. And then we add the low ball damage for out the back, which is 10 times, for a whopping 5,500 kilometers. The moon's core, for those of you who may not know, is around 350 kilometers in radius, which would be 700 kilometers in diameter. The core is around 20% of the moon itself, so 700 times 5 is 3,500 kilometers. So that very Rasengan, using lower end measurements, is already around moon level in potency and pretty much in DC. You could argue, oh, but Uchiha Stone Tablet, the moon is more solid and less hollow, if hollow at all. I'm talking about in real life, actually, so not hollow, than a water tower. That is true. But you have to keep in mind, Naruto was impaled 3 times by black receivers. Even if you say each receiver cuts his chakra flow in half, 3, that's 1/8 of Naruto's power, so multiply that Rasengan by 8, and it's pretty much undoubtedly moon level. That's not even really a debate anymore. And you have to keep in mind that Boruto's current Rasengans are no bigger than a golf ball, but due to its change in nature to wind, it does nearly as much concussive damage as Naruto's first few, so technically the multipliers for hitting it should be higher for Boruto's Naruto-enhanced Rasengan, I guess. And if you don't believe that base Naruto could come anywhere near moon level, let's look at this. This is when Six Paths Naruto used 9 Six Paths enhanced Rasen Shurikens, each with their own unique Biju Nature Transformation / Kekkei Genkai. Kaguya comes out of this attack almost completely unfazed other than, her damaged clothing. Even if you ignore potency, it's still at least small country level in DC and size, which is kind of the same thing. Yet an older, more powerful Naruto in his base form and heavily drained and restricted can fuel a Rasengan capable of one-shotting someone more powerful than her. And this is accurate because we already saw that he was taking multi-continent plus level attacks, physical attacks, and that was before he took pills that increased his power all around. So that attack being at least moon level, it kind of makes sense and is probably higher in potency. You have to remember that Rasengan, while Naruto's signature technique, is one of his weakest offensive techniques by a long shot. Rasen Shuriken would be more potent because it does cellular level damage, and he has been shown to make them in base with no effort at all. Imagine a Rasengan from KCM Naruto. Hell, imagine a 6 paths full power Biju Dama. Biju mode is roughly 72,000 times multiplier on Naruto's base in chakra capacity. Calm down. Probably not that high in DC, but calm down. Chakra capacity, guys. And that was when he had half of Kurama. You know what? Imagine this. That's right. This. Imagine current Hokage Naruto doing this and just throwing it down. Tell me that's not blowing up the earth. Well, some of you will, but if you accept the logic that I presented to you, then it should destroy the earth and leave nothing left. So saying Naruto isn't planetary is, for lack of a better term, a bit ignorant and kind of stupid. At least to me it is. So that's it. Did I miss any evidence that either helps prove or disproves my argument? Let me know what you think down there, whether you agree, disagree, why not. I'll probably keep an eye on them. If you enjoyed this, be sure to hit that thumbs up. I mean, this took a while to make. Maybe subscribe if you want to see me do this more. I will leave a straw poll in the comments, and I'll probably have it pinned in the comment section, description and comment section. For my next video, it will either be me scaling Kaguya's power, which I already know how strong she is, but you may not know. So if you want to know, vote Kaguya. Other option is the DBS, the Dragon Ball Super manga, being the canon, not the anime. Well, technically I'm not going to get into that unless you guys vote for that to be the next video. And I should have it, if not by Friday, then next Tuesday at the latest, maybe, hopefully. I'm on spring break. I want to get this video out before spring break ends, so let's see what you guys think. This has been Uchiha Stone Tablet. I'm going to drink some water because I've been talking for a while. Anyways, guys, bye.